Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I'm Fina, and today I'm going to be doing the 20 questions book tag. So I will be linking the original creator in the description box down below, so if you want to go check them out, go right ahead. So the first question is, how many books are too many for a series? And I think this varies. For me, it really depends. Some series, I feel like they need a lot of books to tell the story that they need to get across. They need to have that space to work with in order to fully develop their characters and their world and their plot line. Like the Stormlight Archive, I can totally see why Brandon Sanderson needs 10 books to write this series. It's a massive scale, it's a massive world, there are so many characters, and so I don't mind that it's going to be 10 books long because I feel like the story needs it. Whereas you sometimes will see trilogies that are written and the middle book really feels very pointless. It feels like the material in that middle book could have been divided between the first and the third books and just not had a second book. And so for me, it doesn't matter so much how many books there are, just whether or not those books are necessary. If your series needs to be a 10-book series and the story needs that space to be properly told, then write 10 books. Like, I will read those 10 books if the story is good, and all of those books need to be there for the story to be properly told. But if your series only needs to have 2 books, don't try to cram a second book into the middle of those 2 books and try to stretch it out into a trilogy, because it probably won't work. Fans probably won't like it because it's just filler instead of story. And so for me, it's not really the quantity of the books in a series that matters so much to me, but just more the quality of those books. The second question is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? For me, it really depends on the cliffhanger. Some books will leave a few loose ends that could be considered a cliffhanger, but they don't really necessitate getting the next book right away, and they don't feel cheap. It's just kind of leading readers into the next book, getting them excited for the next book. Some cliffhangers can feel cheap. It can feel like a ploy to get the readers to buy the next book. But some cliffhangers I feel like are really necessary, and those cliffhangers are less literal cliffhangers and more just like loose ends that readers are excited about and that kind of builds reader expectation for the next book in a series. Those are the kind of cliffhangers that I'm okay with. I like them because then I can get really excited, and all of us fans of those series can just get together and talk about it and speculate on what's going to happen and how these loose ends are going to be tied up. I like those cliffhangers. I don't like the idea of cliffhangers that feel cheap. I can't really think of any cliffhangers that I've read, at least recently, that do this, but I'm sure there are some out there. I'm sure I've read some and I'm just forgetting them at the moment. But yeah, it really depends on the cliffhanger for me. The third question is hardcover or paperback, and I feel like a lot of people do answer hardcover for these sorts of questions, and I do get that. I get how pretty hardcovers are, but for me personally, soft covers all the way. I love floppy soft covers. I love how they feel when I'm reading them. They're so much easier to read. It isn't hard to hold them. And so I do tend to like paperbacks, especially paperbacks like this that are just super floppy, and I love floppy books like this so much. So I'm going to go with paperback for this question. Question number 4 is favorite book. Don't put me on the spot like this. It's hard because I have a lot of favorite books and I can't really pick between them. I have a very difficult time choosing between them, especially since I love so many different genres. So it's really hard to compare 2 books from different genres. But I normally go with The Way of Kings for answering this question, because I just think that it's such an amazing book and the entire series is just incredible and So I normally go with this. I also really, really love the Raven Cycle. I consider it one of my favorites. I love The Book Thief and Letters to the Lost. I can't pick one, it's too hard. Question number 5 is least favorite book. I mean, there are a lot of books that I've read that I really haven't enjoyed, but I'm going to go with The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I've talked a lot on this channel about how much I dislike this book, and honestly, I really don't like it at all. And the more I think about it, the more I dislike it. And I know that this isn't a popular opinion at all. I know a lot of people really do love this series, but I just had too many issues with it overall. I feel like there needs to be a difference between a morally gray character and a character who is just so horrible that it just makes them completely unsympathetic and unrelatable for the reader. And that was the case with the characters in The Cruel Prince. I couldn't sympathize with any of them. I couldn't root for them. They were all horrible people, and I just couldn't get behind that. And I am fine with morally gray characters. I'm fine with anti-heroes, but this was just too far in my opinion. And maybe some people would disagree with me, but I just feel like you need to have some positive traits to balance out the negative traits. No person is just horrible or just good. We all have flaws and we all have strengths, and I feel like those need to be balanced in any character. And I feel like that really wasn't the case very much in The Cruel Prince. I also had a huge issue with the romantic relationship that was set up in the end of the first book. I just think that it's super toxic and abusive, and it kind of seemed like the narrative was pushing those characters to be together and for the readers to ship those characters together. And I didn't like that. I've seen on the fandom that a lot of people ship these characters, and I can't get behind that. I don't like that at all. I think that we shouldn't be romanticizing toxic and abusive relationships. And so I never continued this series. Maybe it changes, maybe it sorts itself out, but I have no motivation to continue, and I likely never will, because I have other books to read that I know I'm going to enjoy more. And so yeah, The Cruel Prince is probably one of my least favorite books of all time. Question number 6 is love triangles, yes or no? No. Most of the time, love triangles are literally just there to build drama, and I hate it. It's annoying, and you see them so many times that they get old, and they're not compelling because it's usually very clear who the main character will choose from the very first page. From the very first time that both love interests are introduced, it's usually pretty clear who the main character is going to pick in the end. And so it's not compelling, it's just useless drama, and you're annoyed because you know that the main character is going to pick this person instead of this person, so why bother with all of this drama when you're just going to pick them anyway? Like, I don't like it. I wouldn't even like it if I didn't know who the main character was going to end up with. I just think it's pointless, and I would rather focus on the actual plot as opposed to some kind of teenage angst subplot with a bunch of like unnecessary romantic drama, because it's pointless. I don't like it. I think that a lot of books would be much better off without the love triangle. Which I know is not an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of people hate love triangles. So I don't know why they're still a thing, but they are, so I don't know. Question number 7 is the most recent book that you couldn't finish. That would be The Doubt Factory. I picked this up because it sounded like a really interesting read, but oh my gosh, the romance was just, the setup was, no. Stalker romance is not okay. I don't even know why I need to say this, but apparently I do. It's not okay. I really was interested in reading this book, but the way that it ended up going, like, whoa. No. The main character was just so stupid. I really didn't like the direction that I saw the story going in. There was this one scene that just like, I literally paused the audiobook and returned it to my library as soon as I got into this scene because I'm like, what the heck did I just listen to? So yeah, that book was just, wow. I didn't need to have read those first few chapters. I wish I hadn't, but that was the last book I DNF'd. So question number 8 is a book you're currently reading. I'm currently reading 3 books right now. I'm reading Seraphina, I'm reading The Queen of Blood, and I am reading A Time to Dance. And I am really enjoying A Time to Dance. I think that it is excellent, and I am enjoying Seraphina. I'm working through it extremely slowly because the plot is a little bit, it's starting a little bit slow, but I hope it will pick up as it progresses. The Queen of Blood, I have mixed feelings right now. I don't tend to like the magic school trope. I feel like the only time that it was done well was in Harry Potter, and I feel like it just wasn't done well here, but this book could still prove me wrong. I still have more than 50% left to go, and I'm still open to it. I haven't fallen in love with it yet. I don't really like any of the characters yet, but I'm not forming any opinions about the rest of the book yet. Currently it's sitting at a solid 3 stars. But I do hope that it might pick up and change my mind later on. I normally don't just read one book at any given time. I usually have a few on the go because I like flipping back and forth between them. I usually have an audiobook on the go and then a physical book, and I'm reading A Time to Dance on ebooks, so they're all different formats. But I don't normally just sit down and just read one book and then move on to the next one. I usually have them staggered, so I'm always reading at least a couple books at the same time. Question number 9 is the last book that you recommended to someone. And I can't really remember, but I do recommend the Stormlight Archive a lot. I also recommend the Raven Cycle a lot. Those are like my go-tos for recommendations because I love them so much and I think that everybody should read them. But yeah, so I don't remember what was the last book that I recommended, but those two for sure are ones that I recommend all the time, and so one of them was probably the last book that I recommended. So question number 10 is the oldest book that you've read by publication date. For oldest fiction, I think it's Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. It was published in 1811, which is a long time ago. But I've also read the Bible. I haven't read it all the way through at one time, but that was published like way before Sense and Sensibility, so that could also count. But in terms of fiction, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen is the oldest book that I've read, I think. I used to read a lot of classics when I was a kid, so I might have read something older, but I think that that's the oldest one that I have read. Question number 11 is the newest book that you've read by publication date, and that would be, actually it's right behind me, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This was published in May of this year, and it is one of only 2 2020 releases that I have read this year. I'm usually very behind on new releases. I don't tend to gravitate towards new releases. A lot of them just don't look appealing to me right now. There's a lot of books coming out that just don't appeal to me at all. But yeah, this is the newest one that I've read, and I did enjoy it. I think that it's a worthy prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. Obviously, I didn't read these back to back. I read the Hunger Games trilogy a few years before I read this, so maybe my opinion would change if I were to reread the Hunger Games, but as it stands, I think that this is a really great prequel. I did really enjoy it as a story, and I would recommend it to Hunger Games fans because I think it did a good job. Question number 12 is favorite author. I probably would say Brandon Sanderson. I also like Maggie Stiefvater's books. I like V. Schwab's books. I also really love Jonathan Auxier's books. I have a few favorite authors. I'm very bad at picking favorites. If this video is telling you guys anything, it's that I'm terrible at picking just one favorite. Question 13 is buying or borrowing books. Now, probably borrowing. I used to buy a lot of books when I was book blogging. Last year, like a year or so ago, I bought a ton of books, and I'm kind of regretting that now, because the thing is, I ended up with a lot of books on my shelves that I didn't really care about or that I didn't like at all, because when you're just buying books and you don't know the author yet and you don't know a lot about the books themselves, it's a hit and miss thing. You could potentially find a new favorite, but there's also a very large chance that you're going to find something that just doesn't gel with your reading tastes. And that's what I found. So I'm trying to scale back on my book buying because I just think that I would rather borrow books that look mildly interesting from a library, find out if I like them, and if I like them, I can purchase them for me to reread. And that's kind of like my litmus test for whether or not I do end up keeping a book, is whether or not I think that I will reread it in the future. And if I don't see myself rereading it, I won't keep it, because I don't see the point of holding on to something that's just going to sit there and collect dust. So I'm at the stage now where I think that borrowing books is a way better idea for me personally than buying them, because I want to try new stories, but I don't want to waste money on something that I'm not going to fully enjoy or appreciate. And I would much rather spend my money on books that I've already read and loved and have those for my collection so that I can reread them. I feel like borrowing books that I'm not sure about and buying books that I am sure about is the best way to go for me personally. Question number 14 is a book that you dislike that everyone else seems to love. I already mentioned The Cruel Prince, and I think that that's the one that I see most people raving about. I don't really see a lot of negative opinions about it, and so that's probably the one I'm gonna go for this question as well. I DNF'd Throne of Glass, which is another insanely popular series, but I only read 30 pages, and so I don't really feel, qualified to speak about the book as a whole, even though I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the rest of it if I had pushed myself to finish. But probably The Cruel Prince, because I read the whole thing, I disliked the whole thing, and I also really don't see as many negative opinions about this as some other popular books, so I'm gonna go with this one. Question number 15 is bookmarks or dog ears. Bookmarks, I don't care if you want to dog ear your books. That's cool, but I personally use bookmarks. Question number 16 is a book that you can always reread. The Book Thief is one for sure. The Raven Boys is another. Sweep by Jonathan Auxier is another one. I think that it's amazing, and I wish more people would read it. I would say The Way of Kings, but it is a very huge time commitment, and so I don't think I could just always, go over, pick it up, and reread it. Because it does take a very large time commitment to read it. Yeah, I am a huge advocate of rereading, and so I do have a lot of books lined up that I know I will be rereading over and over and over again. So I can't really pick just one, but yeah, those are a few books that I would consider books that I could always reread. Question number 17 is, can you read while listening to music? No, I don't tend to. I've just never thought about it. I prefer just sitting and reading, no music, just reading. Question number 18 is one POV or multiple. And again, this depends on the story. If the story calls for one point of view, have one point of view. If the story needs multiple points of view, have multiple points of view. Just make sure that none of the POVs are like annoying. This does happen a few times where you'll have your collection of point of view characters, and there's that one character that you just can't stand, and every time their POV rolls around, you're just not you again. But if the POVs are done well and the characters are interesting and each POV adds something to the story, I don't have an issue with it. It doesn't matter to me. It's what the story requires. If the story needs one POV, do one POV. If the story needs more than one POV, do more than one POV. That's all cool with me. Question number 19 is, do you read a book in one sitting or multiple sittings? Multiple sittings. I can't just sit down and read an entire book in one go. I'm not that kind of person, I'll be honest. Even when I'm really enjoying a book, I can't just sit down and start a book and finish a book all at the same time. I wouldn't say I'm a slow reader, but I'm also not the fastest reader out there, and so I like taking it slowly or a little bit more slowly. I usually can't just sit down and read a book for like 3 hours straight. My attention span isn't that good. So, yeah, generally it takes multiple sittings for me to finish a book. Even if it's only like, 2 or 3, it's still multiple sittings. It's not just one giant stretch to finish a book. That's me. Some readers just can sit down and do that, but that's not, I can't personally. So question number 20 is, who do you tag? And I'm going to tag Kate and Tony from an Erudite Adventure if you guys want to do this tag. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please let me know in the comments down below what your favorite book is or what your least favorite book is. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. I post videos every Monday and Friday. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.